What if I told you that an entire country is quietly rejecting a royal arrival, while the people involved pretend nothing is happening? Because right now, something is boiling beneath the surface, and it's not gossip anymore, it's a full-blown public revolt hiding in plain sight. As of 8 a.m., April 13th, 2026, the number isn't just a number, it's a warning signal flashing in red. 40,758 signatures, not whispers, not rumors. A digital uprising documented in real time, screaming across a single petition page aimed directly at two names about to land on Australian soil. And here's the part that should make you pause. They're still coming. Less than 48 hours before touchdown, while their jet slices through the sky, something colder is happening on the ground. Silence. Not the calm kind, the dangerous kind. Inside the corridors of power in Canberra, documents are sitting untouched, security clearances left hanging, funding approvals marked pending, a quiet refusal dressed up as bureaucracy. No announcements, no welcome statements, just a chilling forward response from leadership. We have no involvement. Think about that. No involvement for a royal visit? Because here's where the illusion cracks. When a working royal travels, systems activate like clockwork, security funded, protection guaranteed, prestige intact. But this time, that entire mechanism has been switched off. No status, no funding, no shield. What does that leave? Exposure. And suddenly, the cost, millions of dollars, doesn't fall on governments anymore. It falls on organizers, and indirectly, the public pressure cooker starts ticking louder. And then they spoke. March 26, a date that should have cooled tensions. Instead, it ignited everything. Because instead of acknowledging the growing resistance, a statement dropped, sharp, dismissive, almost mocking. The petition, called a moot point. The people signing it, reduced to a statistical zero. 40,000 voices dismissed like background noise. Pause right there, because that moment changed everything. Within 24 hours, thousands more signatures flooded in. Not because people suddenly cared, but because they felt insulted. Because nothing fuels a fire faster than being told you don't exist. It wasn't just PR damage, it was PR self-destruction. Like watching someone pour gasoline on their own reputation and then act surprised when the flames rise higher. And yet, above it all, something even more unsettling is happening. No one is defending them. Not a single major political voice stepping forward. Not one leader saying, this visit matters. Instead, there's distance. Carefully calculated distance. Because attaching your name to something this controversial right now, it's political risk. And in those silent halls, the message is loud. This is radioactive. Meanwhile, outside that political bubble, reality is getting tighter, more controlled, almost suffocating. Security plans reveal something strange. No walkabouts, no public crowds, no spontaneous interactions. The kind of moments that once defined royal connection, completely erased. Instead, everything is sealed, controlled, isolated, a tour where the public can't reach them, and they can't face the public. Why? Because when you remove access, you remove unpredictability. And when you remove unpredictability, you hide reactions. But here's where the story twists into something darker. Follow the money. Behind the polished announcements and empowerment slogans, there's a financial trail that doesn't sit right. Numbers that don't align, debts that shouldn't coexist with million-dollar deals, a retreat being promoted as a life-changing experience priced at nearly $3,000 a ticket. And yet, the person organizing it buried under over $500,000 in debt. Let that sink in. How does someone drowning financially suddenly orchestrate an event of this scale? Where is that money really coming from? And more importantly, where is it going? Because buried inside official reports, documents not meant for headlines, there's a detail that refuses to stay quiet. A seven-figure commission, over $1 million. No clear paperwork, no explanation. Just there, floating in the financial shadows like a ghost transaction that shouldn't exist. And that's where the narrative shifts. This isn't just about public backlash anymore. This is about a system that doesn't add up. A puzzle where every piece raises more questions than answers. A retreat selling empowerment while enforcing strange conditions, like guests paying thousands, only to share rooms with strangers unless they pay even more. What kind of exclusive experience does that? It starts to feel less like luxury and more like a carefully engineered filter. A space designed not just to profit, but to control who gets in, who gets heard, and who gets excluded. Because when ticket prices rise that high, criticism disappears. Only the most loyal remain. And suddenly, the room becomes an echo chamber where every voice sounds supportive because dissent was priced out before it even entered. And then comes the final move. The media removed, journalists denied, access revoked. Even those willing to pay full price suddenly blocked once identified. Imagine that. A public event that doesn't want to be reported. Why silence the observers unless there's something you don't want observed? And now, as the plane descends closer, everything is converging. A petition exploding in numbers, a government stepping back, a public growing louder, a financial trail getting darker, and behind it all, a carefully constructed image starting to crack under pressure. Because the real question isn't whether they'll land, it's what they'll land into. And more importantly, what happens when the doors close, the cameras are controlled, and the truth has nowhere left to hide. And just when it feels like the story has reached its peak, that's when the ground beneath it starts shifting in a way no one saw coming. Because landing isn't the climax, landing is the trigger. The moment the wheels touch the runway, the illusion collides with reality, and reality right now is unstable, unpredictable, and dangerously loud beneath the surface. Think about the contrast for a second. In 2018, there was rain pouring down, thousands standing in mud just to catch a glimpse. A moment that became iconic. A prince standing exposed, sharing the discomfort, earning admiration without saying a word. That image didn't just build a reputation, it cemented it. It told the world what this story was supposed to be about. Service, connection, sacrifice. Now fast forward to this exact moment, April 2026, and everything feels inverted. The rain is gone, but so is the access. The crowds aren't gathering, they're being kept out. The connection isn't organic, it's controlled. And what used to be freely given now comes with a price tag so steep it changes the entire meaning of the experience. Because let's not ignore the transformation hiding in plain sight. This isn't a continuation of that legacy. This is something else entirely. Something calculated. Something structured like a business model rather than a public duty. The kind of model where every interaction is monetized, every appearance is packaged, and every moment is filtered before the world can even react to it. And that brings us back to the mechanism quietly operating behind the scenes. The one no one openly talks about, but everyone is starting to feel. The three-step system that turns influence into income while insulating itself from scrutiny. First, the name, the title, the brand, the invisible halo that inflates value without needing to prove anything in the present. Then the price barrier. Thousands of dollars just to enter the room, ensuring that only a certain type of audience remains. One that is financially and emotionally invested enough not to question what they're seeing. And finally, the silence. The removal of anyone capable of documenting, challenging, or exposing what's actually happening inside those walls. Put those three together, and what do you get? Not a public event, not even a private gathering. You get a controlled environment, a sealed narrative, and that's where things start to feel uncomfortable. Because outside that sealed environment, the real world doesn't operate on curated narratives. It reacts, it questions, it pushes back. And right now, that pushback isn't fading, it's building momentum. Quietly, steadily, like pressure behind a locked door. Now add the financial layer on top of that. A company drowning in debt, $500,000 owed, officially declared, documented, and yet somehow orchestrating an event involving millions in movement, luxury venues, premium pricing, high-profile appearances. It doesn't just raise eyebrows, it creates a contradiction so sharp it cuts straight through the narrative. Because here's the uncomfortable truth no one is directly answering. If the money isn't coming from where it's supposed to, then where is it coming from? And more importantly, where is it going? That seven-figure commission sitting there like a glitch in the system becomes impossible to ignore at this stage. No documentation, no justification, no visible purpose, just a number that shouldn't exist, quietly embedded inside official filings like a secret waiting to be uncovered. And secrets like that don't stay buried forever. Because once financial trails start connecting across borders, Australia to California, private entities to nonprofit structures, debts to unexplained payouts, the story stops being local. It stops being contained. It starts expanding into something far more serious, something that moves beyond headlines and into investigations. And that's the part no one is openly acknowledging yet, but everyone involved can feel creeping closer. Meanwhile, back on the ground, something else is unfolding in real time. The atmosphere itself is shifting, not dramatically, not loudly, but noticeably. Ticket prices quietly adjusted. Availability suddenly wider than expected. A subtle signal that demand isn't matching expectation, that the carefully constructed image of overwhelming interest might not be holding as firmly as projected. And when demand drops, narratives get tested. Because there are only three ways this can realistically play out now, and none of them look comfortable. The first is the empty room scenario, where despite the hype, despite the branding, the seats simply don't feel the way they were supposed to. And if even a glimpse of that leaks out, one photo, one video, one unfiltered moment, it changes everything. Because perception is the currency here, and once that cracks, rebuilding it becomes almost impossible. The second is the total blackout. Everything locked down, every image curated, every angle controlled, a version of reality presented so tightly that nothing slips through. And on the surface, it works. It creates the illusion of success. But underneath, the questions don't disappear. They multiply. Because when people can't see something, they start imagining what's being hidden. And then there's the third scenario, the one that feels the most likely, the most tense, the most unpredictable. The quiet retreat. Movements minimized, appearances reduced, public exposure avoided, not officially canceled, but carefully limited. A strategy designed to reduce risk, but one that comes with its own consequence. It confirms the fear of reaction. Because avoiding the public doesn't erase the public's opinion. It amplifies it. And every police escort, every closed door, every restricted entry point becomes a visual reminder of the very thing being avoided. But even that isn't the real climax. Because while everyone is watching the arrival, the schedules, the appearances, the real story is still buried in paperwork, in filings, in numbers that don't align, in names that have been deliberately hidden. That redacted signature sitting quietly on page 14 isn't just a detail, it's a doorway, a link, a thread connecting this entire situation to something much larger, much more complex, and potentially far more damaging. Because if that name, once revealed, connects to external entities, to financial structures operating beyond this single event, then everything shifts. The narrative doesn't just crack, it collapses into something else entirely, something that can't be managed with statements or controlled with security. And that's where the tension sits right now, not in what we've already seen, but in what hasn't been revealed yet. Because the flight may have landed, the schedule may be set, the stage may be prepared, but the real countdown isn't tied to appearances, it's tied to exposure. One document, one leak, one confirmation. That's all it takes. And the question hanging in the air right now isn't whether the story will continue, it's how much deeper it's about to go when it does.